For he would build a tower higher than the water could reach and avenge the destruction of their forefathers. The people were eager to follow this advice of Nimrod, deeming it slavery to submit to God. So they set out to build the tower. And it rose with a speed beyond all expectation. Jewish Antiquities, I, 114, 115 4, 2, 3. It appears that after the building of the Tower of Babel, Nimrod extended his domain to the territory of Assyria and there built Nineveh and Hodothir and Calah and Resen between Nineveh and Calah. This is the great city. GE 10. 11, 12. Compare Mic 5. 6. Since Assyria evidently derived its name from Shem's son Ashur, Nimrod, as a grandson of Ham, must have invaded Shemite territory. So it would seem that Nimrod made the start in becoming a mighty one or hero, not only as a hunter of animals, but also as a warrior, a man of aggression. GE 10. 8 observes the Cyclopedia by M. Clintock and Strong. That the mighty hunting was not confined to the chase is apparent from its close connection with the building of 8 cities. What Nimrod did in the chase as a hunter was the earlier token of what he achieved as a conqueror. For hunting and heroism were of old especially and naturally associated. The Assyrian monuments also picture many feats in hunting, and the word is often employed to denote campaigning. The chase and the battle, which in the same country were connected so closely in after times, may therefore be virtually associated or identified here. The meaning then will be, that Nimrod was the first after the flood to found a kingdom, to unite the fragments of scattered patriarchal rule, and consolidate them under himself as sole head and master. And all this in defiance of Jehovah, for it was the violent intrusion of Hamitic power into a Shemitic territory. 1894, Volume 7, p. 109. Concerning deification of Nimrod, see gods and goddesses of Babylonian deities. Nimshi, father of Jehoshaphat Textoi Acute Muritra Longo, Nineveh 504 Qunjik. However, excavations have brought to light much that testifies to Nineveh's past glory. The findings include thousands of cuneiform tablets from Ashurbanipal's library and the ruins of the palace of Sennacherib and that of Ashurbanipal. These palaces were impressive structures. Based on his findings, Sir Austin Layard wrote, "The interior of the Assyrian palace must have been as magnificent as imposing. I have led the reader through its ruins, and he may judge of the impression its halls were calculated to make upon the stranger who in the days of old, entered for the first time the abode of the Assyrian kings. He was ushered in through the portal guarded by the colossal lions or bulls of white alabaster. In the first hall he found himself surrounded by the sculptured records of the empire. Battles, sieges, triumphs, the exploits of the chase, the ceremonies of religion, were portrayed on the walls, sculptured in alabaster, and painted in gorgeous colors. Under each picture were engraved, in characters filled up with bright copper, inscriptions describing the scenes represented. Above the sculptures were painted other events. The king, attended by his eunuchs and warriors, receiving his prisoners, entering into alliances with other monarchs, or performing some sacred duty. These representations were enclosed in colored borders, of elaborate and elegant design. The emblematic tree, winged bulls, and monstrous animals, were conspicuous amongst the ornaments. At the upper end of the hall was the colossal figure of the king in adoration before the supreme deity, receiving from his eunuch the holy cup. He was attended by warriors bearing his arms, and by the priests or presiding divinities. His robes, and those of his followers, were adorned with groups of figures, animals, and flowers, all painted with brilliant colors. The stranger trod upon alabaster slabs, each bearing an inscription, recording the titles, genealogy, and achievements of the great king. Several doorways, formed by gigantic winged lions or bulls, or by the figures of guardian deities, lead into other apartments, which again opened into more distant halls. In each were new sculptures. On the walls of some were processions of colossal figures. Armed men and eunuchs following the king, warriors laden with spoil, leading prisoners, or bearing presents and offerings to the gods. On the walls of others were portrayed the winged priests, or presiding divinities, standing before the sacred trees. The ceilings above him were divided into square compartments, painted with flowers, or with the figures of animals. Some were inlaid with ivory, each compartment being surrounded by elegant borders and mouldings. The beams, as well as the sides of the chambers, may have been gilded, or even plated, with gold and silver. And the rarest woods, in which the cedar was conspicuous, were used for the woodwork. Square openings in the ceilings of the chambers admitted the light of day. Nineveh and its remains, 1856, Part 2, pages 207-209. In the time of Jonah. Jehovah's prophet Jonah, in the 9th century BCE, declared impending doom for Nineveh because of the wickedness of its inhabitants. However, since the people, including the king, repented, Jehovah spared the city. John 1. 1, 2, 3, 2, 5-10. At that time Nineveh was a great city, with a walking distance of 3 days. John 3.